This little video I'm going to describe how to make a simple alarm. You don't need any knowledge of electrics or electronics, and there's no components at all. You can't get anything simpler than this design. And here on the bench I have a selection of various speakers out of radios, computers, televisions and so forth. And to the right of the screen you'll see a TV which I use as a monitor so I can see what I'm doing on the bench. And I thought, hello, the monitor is playing up a bit, and I looked down and this screwdriver, it's got a green handle, and but I can see it hasn't got a green handle, and I moved it up and it turned into red. And I suddenly dawned on me it's because we got this speaker close to the TV. If I remove that speaker, the screwdriver should have gone back to red. Oh well, I've got diverted. Let's move on. I'll do another waffle on colour convergence and magnetic fields another time. Anyway, back to the plot. We have a selection of various speakers. All speakers work on the same principle. And using this big one, which affected my monitor, I don't want to muck this one up because this is a lovely speaker and it came out of an organ. And it's a real cracker. But they all have a diaphragm which I'm flexing up and down, and it is the flexing of the diaphragm, vibrations, which travel through the air and we perceive as sound. And in order to connect to speakers there's usually a couple of connectors like here. And those connectors connect to a coil inside the magnet here. Anyway, I won't get into too technicalities. But in order for the cone to flex backwards and forwards, we have two flexible, get in there, two flexible connections between the tag and the coil. They usually come through here onto the cone. All speakers are like this. Okay. Now what we want to do, some speakers are easier to get at than others. Find an easy one, but they're all, you can do it with all you need is a bit of dexterity. But you can use a little screwdriver, a pair of side cutters, a long-nosed pair of pliers and a soldering iron. You can make yourself a very simple alarm. If we unsolder one lead from the coil, one connector, it doesn't matter which one. I've unsoldered this one, and instead, if I can get in close enough, I've soldered on a small piece of brass strip. Don't know if my screwdriver shows that, and it's soldered on the back where I've soldered it on. And this we super glue or hot melt glue back down onto the cone. So we've disconnected this tab and we've put that connection onto the cone. That's the hardest part of all. If we take a battery, a 1.5 volt cell, and I've soldered a couple of wires on just to make it easy here. If we place 1.5 volt cell across the speaker, we'll hear it click, of course. But as well as because this is DC, the cone will move in one direction. It'll either go forward or it'll come back depending on the polarity of this, depending which way around you've connected the battery. So try both ways and watch which way, watching the cone carefully, when you put the battery on, which way the cone moves. We want it to move away from the magnet, forwards. This will only work forwards. So mark which one is positive and which one is negative from your battery. Okay, that's quite simple. The next part is to find a piece of cabling, single strand, not too stiff, could be actually thinner than that, but that's all I had. Pull out a strand, you don't need much, and with the aid of your pliers make up a shape. And here, if I get in close enough, you can see what I've done. If I get in really close, I've soldered that piece of wire on the top tag and I've bent it round in an arc, and it's touching the little brass strip or washer we've put there. But it's only lightly touching. I've just squeezed it and carefully moved it around so it just makes contact. So now when we put 1.5 volts across here, the cone jumps forward because it's receiving electric, if you like, but as it does, it breaks the connection. It's no longer connected, so the cone jumps back. When it comes back, it's reconnected again, so it goes forward and it oscillates backwards and forwards. And that's the principle of our sounder, our alarm. Effectively, we've made a buzzer. We've simply made a buzzer out of a small speaker. So if we now put and the tone will depend on the size of the speaker and the voltage we use and how carefully we adjust this little piece of copper wire on the tab. Now if you're really clever and you're good with the soldering iron, perhaps a better system with the smaller ones is to solder on a little brass nut, and then with a little brass bolt you can adjust the bolt down till it touches the contact, and that will give you a lot of adjustment because it's quite critical. But once set up, as I have done here, it will remain the same. So using this simple sounder, alarm, buzzer, call it what you will, you can apply this to many applications. Here I've fitted up a Morse key. So you've got a Morse practice set. The smaller ones tend to give a much higher, shriller note, again dependent on voltage and adjustment. But they're more suitable for fishing, bite detect alarms. They're very suitable for that because you can put them in a very neat box. But you can take this whole theme and principle a stage further. I once made a seed processing machine which sorted the husks and the seeds of various flowers and so forth for a seed making company, and they wanted to have them go down conveyor belts and so forth into packets. And I'd done this by having the cone and seeds placed across the cone, and all the seeds danced up and down on the cone depending on the frequency. And of course I used a very low frequency and there was just a low hum going on, and I was able to transport seeds and husks in different directions. So there are numerous applications that you can apply this very, very simple sounder. It does take a little bit of jiggery-pokery with the wire, less so with the nut and bolt idea, but that's a little bit harder to initially make. But the principle is I've made. Give it some more thought and you'll be amazed what you can come up with.